everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 22 of Chihayafuru, and the Eastern qualifier is getting underway. Chihaya has beaten a child, not in the literal sense that way, but she has defeated a child. That's the better way. Somebody's gonna like sound clip that and put it to the worst things and edit it. It's been a day. But yeah, so Chihaya has defeated in Karuta the would-be prodigy, Rurika, and is now advancing on to the next round. Arata has made it to the next round, the second round, as we saw at the end of episode 21. And Taichi has thrown down the gauntlet, made a declaration of war, being like, I'm going to be the Eastern qualifier champ if you're going to be the Western. And I was like, oh, okay, Taichi, come on. So I'm pretty excited about that, but I'm definitely excited because as the series has shown us, there is no chill episode of Chihayafuru. Alexandra Q was like, there is no chill episode of Chihayafuru, and I am 100% in agreement. So, with that being the case, I want to dive right into these comments with you all. Foranoda for episode 19 says, Poem of the day is As the Years Pass. Poem 84 is a nice change from the imagery of the seasons, instead directly presenting the topic of softening feelings over time. By Fujiwara no Kyosuke, the second son of Fujiwara no Kiksuke, of Poem 79, and the compiler of the Shika Wakushu. Mostao explains that Kyosuke disagreed with his father and his Rokujo school of poetry, but ultimately became a head of the school regardless. The Rokujo family was a politically conservative faction in the Japanese imperial court that used success in poetry to attain power and influence. Imagine the days when being a poet could get you political power and influence. Fun times. Which I guess it's kind of like the songwriters of today that have political influence. I guess it's no different, only this is on a governmental scale. Their growth was eventually challenged by the newer and politically liberal Fujiwara family, specifically Fujiwara no Shunzei, episode 17 and poem 83, and Fujiwara no Taika, poem 97, and the compiler of Hyakunin Ishu. For example, the Rokujo family was one of the first to apply rules of choosing themes, participants, and judges in the Uda Awase poetry gatherings, and their standards of judging poetry put them at odds with the Fujiwaras. I love this like political intrigue and drama behind the scenes. So Mostao translates the poem as, if I live on longer, shall I again, I wonder, yearn for these days. The world that I once saw as bitter now is dear to me. Ooh, that's a really good poem. Literally, the poem suggests that time smooths over the rough edges, the bitter feelings of yesterday giving way to softer memories of a time distant in the memory of the mind. It should be noted that Kyosuke lived at the end of the Heian era, so his poem also reflects a literal changing of the times. Mostao also explains that some commentary has been made alluding to the poem to a decline of times, namely of the Hogan Rebellion, which is also mentioned in poems 76 and 77. This was a short civil war revolving around disputes over Japanese imperial succession, especially over the amount of control maintained by the Fujiwara clan, the rivals of the Rokujo. This led to the rivalry between the Minamoto and Taira clans, which would go on to lead to the events described here in my poem of the day for episode 9 and Kamakura Shogunate. Interesting, we're talking about these rivalries when you have literally him and Arata kind of as rivals in this. Funny that. For Chihayafuru, the poem captures Taichi's feelings towards Karuta. Originally, they were just reminders of the parts of him that he hated. He was the coward that Arata recognized, which Arata recognized the coward in himself and saw it through Taichi, which we've talked about with the whole number situation last episode and episode 20. Eventually, this led to him playing Karuta with Arata and Chihaya, some of his happiest memories, but also some of his worst. He would then be second place to Karuta in Chihaya's mind. Split from his friends, he played alone and fell out of the game. After all, it was not just being alone, but more that it was a reminder of his weakness. Yeah, and the worst part about it is that he views himself as the silver medal. He views himself as player 2. He views himself as the second player with Karuta in Chihaya's mind. And that is objectively true because Arata is the inspiration for Chihaya really getting into Karuta. But I really don't think, we'll talk about this in other comments, Chihaya is pretty oblivious to how her actions and views of people have and do affect others. She is oblivious to what those impacts are. And we're seeing Taichi, who overanalyzes every single aspect of his life to an inch of itself. She has no clue he's like overanalyzed this entire situation. So it's kind of interesting. Now, 3 years later, his feelings have changed. While he still loves Chihaya, which he does, his feelings for Karuta have also become more genuine. If his love was for her before, his love for the game now is his determination to overcome his feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. Taichi wants to be his best self, and Karuta is the representation of that desire. That's one thing that I love about Taichi's character, is that he's gone from being someone who loved Chihaya and was jealous of Arata and felt insecure about himself and that he's not worthy of Chihaya or that he doesn't measure up like Arata does. And he still thinks that. He's not over that, clearly. But Taichi is making an effort to not only play Karuta to challenge Arata and to face those insecurities, but it's also to better himself. It's very Scott Pilgrim. It's like he has to love himself before he can love somebody else. And that's kind of, I feel like, him breaking up with the one girlfriend, him not confessing his love to Chihaya. Taichi is not in a place to confess to Chihaya. He has to love himself and earn that love before he can give it to someone else. The problem is, Arata's kind of going through a similar thing. But it's in a different way. I think Arata doesn't suffer from not loving himself. Arata just feels like immense guilt for believing that he was responsible for his grandfather's death. And so it's a whole different ball game. But I love Taichi to pieces, but God, this author is going to make him suffer. Anyway, let's talk more about Taichi. Alexandra Q for episode 20, thank you for Noda, says, while I was already on board with them being a throuple, I am more than okay with it after this episode. Taichi, I love this way that Alexander Q phrased this. Taichi has a knot of feelings where Arata is concerned, and Chihaya is too oblivious for her own good. Yeah, I wrote this in the Discord. I was like, it's the angst with Taichi. It's the angst of liking a girl, but you think that girl likes another guy, and then you realize that you might like that other guy, but that other guy might like that girl that you might also like. That's the love triangle of Chihayafuru. And mainly it's Taichi. It's mainly Taichi. I think that Arata likes Chihaya. I don't think Arata likes Chihaya to the extent that Taichi does. And I think that Chihaya likes Arata. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that with H Banana 7's comment. They say Chihaya totally needed Tsutomu scolding her. She disregarded Tsutomu's time and potentially Taichi's wishes, which is true. So you pointing out that Karuta consuming Chihaya to an unhealthy degree makes sense. Chihaya sees Arata as a friend and as a lofty goal, but it doesn't seem that she sees him for him, or is it just me? I don't know. I would say that at the end of episode 20, I think that maybe she was starting to realize, why am I associating Arata with this love interest in these poems when I'm thinking of those poems? I think she's starting to realize that maybe she does like Arata, but I don't think Chihaya has had the time nor interest in breaking down whether that thought of Arata is romantic or whether she just idolizes him as someone that inspired her, or what that means. I think she puts Arata and Shinobu on the same level in different ways. So if you're supporting Chihaya as shipping with Shinobu, thinking that she likes her, well, then you kind of also have to do that with Arata. But I think that she kind of has brother zoned Taichi for the moment. But, you know, Chihaya is not romantically interested in anybody. So at the time being, where we are now. So her friend zoning or brother zoning Taichi may change into something romantic over time. She may, Chihaya, if she has told us anything these last couple episodes, you've got to let this girl simmer for a while with a notion, and then when it clicks to her, she'll be like, oh, you just gotta let it happen organically. I did want to point out, I think I accidentally erased it when I erased a comment, but I did want to point out that I really liked the idea that there was a connection last episode between Sakura's lucky, and then you had Rurika with the clover, which is a lucky charm. So I like the idea of luck. Usually luck is Taichi's worst enemy. And here it kind of helped Chihaya out, so of course it did. Of course it did. But yeah, I've loved all of those comments. They've been a lot of fun. But y'all, I am so excited and ready to dive into episode 22. So yeah, I'm excited. I hope you all are as well. But thank you all so much for the comments and kind words. I love this series. It's so good. And I'm so ready to see what episode 22 gives us. So we're going to start episode 22 of Chihayafuru. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's go. This episode nearly made me cry. This episode nearly made me freaking cry. I wanted Chihaya to win so bad, and I nearly cried when she lost because our girl cannot catch a break. Chihaya can't catch a break is the name of the game, and not since the days of Ace of the Diamond have I seen a mangaka treat their main character with such ilk. Not since the days of Ace of the Diamond have I seen a mangaka put their main character, or main characters if you count Taichi in that, through the damn ringer, which, you know, in the defense of the show, early on when Chihaya was getting such, like, success early on, I'm sure the argument was, oh, well, she has it easy and our main character needs to go through some trials and tribulations to earn the victories that she gets. But damn, we just gotta resort to her playing 10-year-olds the rest of the series? So let's talk about this episode, because I really, honestly, by like the 16-minute mark, I looked up at the time and saw it was 16 minutes in. I was like, oh, they're going to make this a two-parter. And then we're going to finish up the match next episode, and Chihaya's going to win. Nope. Not at all. Oh my God, Pseudo! Oh no! Okay, well, we gotta hope that Pseudo loses this round and they both lose the same round. Otherwise, Chihaya's hair is on the line. Oh my God. What if we find out next episode Taichi is facing Pseudo? What if Taichi faces Pseudo and then it's up to Taichi whether or not Chihaya loses all of her hair? Is that even possible? Can that even happen? Taichi's not A rank unless he took up Harada's bet, but I thought about that last week. I'm like, if Taichi's like, I want to be the Eastern qualifier champion so that I can face you as the Western qualifier champion, then the only way he could do that technically is if he took up Harada's offer and was like, oh, actually, yes, I will let myself get into A rank so I can face this or whatever, so I can play and win and then be the qualifier, sure. Because technically, if he was the winner of this tournament, it would bump him to A rank anyway, automatically. So, but oh my God. I really, if Pseudo has to face Taichi next episode, that would be a gag. That would be amazing. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not, so we'll just have to see. So Yamamoto Yumi, you are not going to forget that name, Yamamoto Yumi. Yama means mountain, I believe. So I don't know, what is the meaning of Yumi? Yumi, Japanese meaning, what does that mean? Beauty, origin, friend or true friendship. Interesting. We'll talk about that, but yeah. So Yamamoto Yumi is such like a nice alliterate name. I like it. So she's like, my next opponent is the former queen. I really was worried about that because I'm like, ooh, the former queen, she worked really hard to get there. So, but at first, whenever she was like starting out seeming disinterested, I was like, oh, okay. And I thought maybe Chihaya would win because Chihaya would prove that, you know, if you don't have the passion for Karuta, you're not going to win. But then what does Chihaya do? Because she does this every time when she senses that somebody's not passionate about Karuta. She makes them passionate about Karuta. And then it's like, girl, you can't make your enemies stronger. That's going to backfire on you at some point, right? So, oh my God. But yeah, so Harada is worried about, you know, her facing off against Yamamoto Yumi-san. You've got bad luck. Well, both Chihaya and Taichi have bad luck. What a coinky dink. What is the name of the game, right? She's the former queen. So let's get past this OP and get right into it. I love Yamamoto Yumi's design. I love that she's plain. And I mean that in the best way. She's not flashy. She is very like down to earth, meat and potatoes. She comes from the same society as Nishida and the others, which kind of checks out. And I love the idea of her calluses on her knuckles and her hands. She is the polar opposite of Shinobu in every way, shape, and form. She talks about how she worked for 10 years she became the queen her last year of college. So she worked all throughout middle school, high school, college to get to this point. And then she won. And then the next year she was dethroned by Shinobu. So that's probably the roughest part of it, is that she worked for 10 years to get to the top of the ladder. And then she was instantly thrown off of it. And she just couldn't regain her footing and climb her way back up. And I like the fact that Yamamoto Yumi is not a prodigy. She's the polar opposite. She's the I work to get to the top. She reminds me kind of Oikawa in Haikyuu, which love me some Oikawa. I got a whole shelf of him over here. But she reminds me of Oikawa because Oikawa is like so hardworking and worked their way up to the top and all of that, but had the skill and had the talent. And what made me feel so sad for her was that she just doubted herself so much and had such low self-esteem. I'm like, girl, you are the queen. You have to be talented to get to that place. And I felt that she was discounting her talent, that she was saying she wasn't good enough and that she wasn't good enough to stay queen. I'm like, you had to get to the top. Like, how many people try to be queen? Like Sakura, who's in her 30s with like kids and maybe 40s with kids. And she's not complaining. She's still trying. Like, I was so frustrated by her at first, but then you get to see her play style and everything. And this episode, we're going to have to go through it bit by bit. But she talks about how Chihaya is so pretty and nothing like me with my plain looks and name. Honestly, though, I think that I always get frustrated in this series when people give Chihaya a hard time about being pretty. Like, girl can't help genetics. Like, she's not wearing any makeup. She's like, I can't help it that my sister looks like a model and my parents won the genetic lottery. Sorry, my bad. I think that if Chihaya was her sister playing Karuta, I would understand why people would not like her. Because if Chihaya's sister was playing Karuta and she was like all stuck up on her looks and everything, I could see why people would be annoyed with her. But Chihaya never brings up her looks. She doesn't think that she's pretty. She just is like, I'm just a normal girl. She's just the girl next door. Like, she never points out or draws attention to it. So I always get frustrated when people like give her a hard time for genetics, like she can help it. Do you want her to go like dip her face in acid? What do y'all want to do? And then Yamamoto Yumi says, I'm already sick of her. Why are her eyes shining? This makes it harder. I like that we had that discussion of, you had Yamamoto Yumi starting the match saying this makes it harder. And then it's like, the problem is for Chihaya, that Chihaya is maybe not banking off of her like intimidation factor. Like, Chihaya is beautiful. And if she like got the confidence and self-assuredness in herself, she could use that beauty as a weapon. Because Yamamoto Yumi was like, oh, now it's harder. I'm facing a confident, beautiful Karuta. Because a lot of it is perception. Perception of if you're going to win. And if you start the match thinking you're not going to win, we've talked about it in previous episodes, you won't. But if you start the match off with projecting this confidence, and that can be a factor to intimidate your opponent. I mean, Sudo was intimidating until he started talking. And then Sudo wasn't intimidating anymore, right? But I feel like if Chihaya could be self-assured enough in that she is good, she needs to play her strengths and know what her limits are, when to hold back, and kind of polish herself, but also go in with this confidence that, yes, I'm a beautiful woman playing Karuta and I'm going to stomp your face in. That's going to intimidate the hell out of a lot of people she's facing, and they'll be thrown off. But she doesn't know how to put it all together yet. And that's what breaks my heart, is that I see the passion in Chihaya. She wants it. She wants to win, and she has the passion, and she wants to learn, and she wants people to play with her, but it's just not all clicking together yet. And she's still like trying to figure it all out. And it's frustrating when you're figuring it all out at the highest level you can figure it all out at, right? And then on the other hand, Yamamoto Yumi, at the end of this episode, when she finally gets in her groove and establishes what makes her intimidating, then Chihaya is like, oh, this is harder now. And it's like, yeah. And she couldn't recover from it, which is so frustrating. I hated it. So yeah. So they talk about getting the memorization down. They have 15 minutes to memorize everything. And Yamamoto Yumi is just kind of over it. She's like, why did I enter this tournament? And meanwhile, I guess that was what was so heartbreaking, is that at the beginning of this match, Yamamoto Yumi didn't even really want to play. She was just like, why am I here? And then at the end, she wins because Chihaya helps her to get back her groove. And you're like, Chihaya, you need to stop helping your opponents. Stop helping them realize themselves. But she's like, this is, and she's like, she's playing all these cards. She's like, and I think the moment was when Chihaya's like, luck is on my side. It's like, girl, you can't, like, both Chihaya and Taichi jinxed it. Taichi jinxed the whole match. I'm like, damn it, Taichi, shut up. But both her and Chihaya jinxed it. Both Taichi and Chihaya jinxed it. Because she was like, oh, all my cards, I'm like, Chihaya, I love how passionate you are, girl, but you cannot underestimate your opponents ever. And that's another thing. Chihaya needs to learn the difference between not underestimating and also not being intimidated by your opponents. There's a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot of respecting your opponents and recognizing that they're a threat, but knowing you got this. And Chihaya's not there yet. She rides this elevator of confidence where she's either like, lucky me, I'm gonna win, everything's great, and I don't know what I'm doing, why am I here? Like, she doesn't necessarily doubt herself, but she doubts her skills. And, oh, it was so frustrating in this episode. It made me, like, Chihaya is not introspective, right? And she's the polar opposite of Taichi, who's too introspective. So it's like, there is no Goldilocks unless you're Arata, and we don't see enough of him. But we get to see the match of her winning as queen. And then Chihaya's like, I missed that match last year. So, your first queen title. Can we talk about Dr. Harada's house for a second? Can we talk about the tiger skin rug on the floor? I'm like, sir, when did you get this? I was like, why is there all this taxidermy shit in your house, sir? Harada's a stone cold animal killer. Also, I do like seeing Chihaya in middle school growing her hair out. I think that's cool. I've got the middle school Chihaya hair look right now, and I think it's cute to see her in this middle stage, and also to see her Hiroshi as kind of like a younger, like not quite in college yet. Also, he's wearing a hoodie. It just hit me that says Hiroshi. I get it now. But your moment of glory comes in your last year of college. How do you feel? And then the first thing she does is thank her coach. And of course, Harada's like, isn't that amazing? Her thanking her coach. I hate Kitano, but he has a model student right there. Yeah, and of course, Chihaya is like tearing up watching her because of how humble she was. She's like, I don't remember how the match went, but she refused to give up. And that she called her teacher's name. Like, she's humble to a fault and hardworking and just persistently seems like just a stubborn, good competitor. And of course, Chihaya wasn't paying attention to the match. I'm like, girl. But I do like the idea that we get to see a queen who has worked for 10 years for the title, got to the end. What she did, what Yamamoto Yumi has done is what you want to happen. You want to work solidly for 10 years and then reach the pinnacle. Like that, like you reached the best of the best and won. Like what better outcome could there be? The problem is the next year when that happens to you. And I can kind of relate to Yamamoto Yumi a little bit. When I competed my freshman year, I kind of peaked my freshman year. I did really well. Like, you could have up to 4 events, and I, not to humble brag for a hot second, but I did go gold in like 3 of my 4 events, right? And that's like, unless you go gold in that final event, that's like the best you can do. And so then the next year, I still went gold in 1 event, and I did silver in 2, and then the other event didn't break. But it was good, and I was proud of my work. And speech is subjective. You never know. It depends on the judges, the competitors, everything, the climate. But it wasn't as good as my freshman year. And it was very hard to maintain oneself when you've reached the peak of what you want. Then after the fact, it's like trying to maintain that when you've worked so hard to get to that point is hard. It's difficult. And Shinobu's going to come into play in all this, and that puts a wrench in the whole situation, because looking at how Yamamoto Yumi plays, there was no chance against Shinobu. None. So we're going to talk about that when we get to it. But I like that Chihaya understands that Yamamoto Yumi, she took years to perfect herself. She worked hard to get to where she's at, to perfect her stance, to get to where everything is exactly how she wants it. Again, giving me lots of Oikawa vibes. And she's like, the respect, the previous queen is strong, but you've learned when to give yourself the go sign. You can control a match like this. And the problem is, Chihaya she is such a piece of ice, because she is really beautiful and strong, but she will melt if it's just so quickly. And it's so frustrating to watch, right? So they talked about how they've never seen Yamamoto Yumi practice because she has an office job. And that's something too. I mean, that is something too. I think that your prime time to be a queen or a master is before you graduate college in this world, because, in college you're still going to school, but you have time. You don't have a job that you have to be to 9 to 5. So you can orchestrate with your schedule times to practice and do that. And it gets harder after high school, but you could still do it. Once you get a job, yeah, I could see why Sakura and the others have trouble, unless you're like Harada that coaches a society on Karuta. Other people, I could see why once you graduate, it would be hard to keep that master title up because you don't get to practice as much. And it's a little different than shogi, where you're playing constant matches all the time, and that's part of your job. That is your job. You're a professional shogi player. That is your 9 to 5. Here, it would be hard to manage practices while doing a job and being exhausted and all that. It makes sense. Yeah. And then poor Nishida lost by 20 cards to Pseudo. If Taichi faces Pseudo, I will laugh so hard. He's like, the first time I met a real sadist. Honestly, I think Pseudo held back against Chihaya. I think he was being a little bit of a gentleman to Chihaya, because he thoroughly roasted Nishida, saying, I would roast you in a Karuta match and eat you, and it'd be bad for my health. I'm like, sir? Pseudo, is there something we need to know about you, sir? We know what you are. Class A is scary. There are all these monsters I can't beat. I love that Taichi's like, they're there. It's okay. And he's like, Yumin's playstyle is persistent and stubborn. After she became a queen, she settled down a bit. But the real Yumin... I like that Nishida and the coach know how she actually is. And then she comes out of her shell in this match. This thing that's really sad is that, Nishida, I love that he roots for Yumi because that's his teammate, from the society. But then he's also, got Chihaya as well. Next episode's going to be rough, y'all. Next episode's going to be freaking rough. What? My only thing is, now that Chihaya is out and she's not eligible to be Eastern qualifier, I wonder if she'll go watch the match against Shinobu to learn from it, because if Chihaya needs to do anything, she needs to go watch a match. She needs to go watch Shinobu play in real time and pick up some pointers, see what she needs to do, because I think that the fact that she didn't see Yamamoto Yumi's match probably hurt her in the long run, because she didn't know about the gamesmanship thing with how she's going to get into this, which we'll talk about. But We'll get into that. But Chihaya needs to reflect, and she needs to figure out what she's throwing herself head first into these matches, which for her, trial by fire sometimes works for Chihaya, but it's too much of a gamble. It's like it's either going to pay off really well or she's going to burn up. So I feel like she needs to step back, but I don't know if Arata's going to make it to. I'm so curious now. Now look, hear me out. I thought Chihaya and Arata and Taichi were going to make it, and then it was going to be like Arata versus Taichi, which would be crazy. But now I don't know if that's going to be the case, because I don't know if Taichi's playing or if he was just saying that to Arata to hype him up. But I really genuinely did think that Chihaya could make it to the qualifier. Did I think she was going to beat Shinobu? Hell no. No! I thought she was going to go face Shinobu again, get her ass handed to her, and then be like, okay, back to the drawing board for season 2. All right. Or season 2 was going to start with her facing Shinobu, losing horribly, and then back to the drawing board for whatever season 2's content is. But no, she's not going the next 3 episodes. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing with Chihaya, because she's out. So, I mean, if we have a match against Pseudo, then that would be amazing. And then with Taichi and Pseudo, which I don't think it'll happen, but it would be amazing. And then with Chihaya's hair on the line and Taichi's, reputation and possibility to go against Arata. And then it'd be cool if we focused on Taichi for the rest of this season. That would be cool, because he's the only one I think that could face anything else in this match. Maybe, possibly, I don't know. Is he even competing in this match? I don't remember. Or is he just there watching? Why did he tell Arata that? We'll see in the next 3 episodes, I guess. But yeah, so I think the thing was that Yamamoto Yumi wasn't getting into like her contesting because she'd kind of given up. Or, I love that the heat works against Chihaya in the tournament. Chihaya needs to basically compete in an igloo. Girl runs so hot. She's so hot-natured to begin with that she just instantly overheats and just brain fog and just computer malfunctioning, right? And she's like, "You're right, doctor." She says she likes it because normal people can never join us here. They're all Class A players. I can't imagine how hot it is in that room. That room, just feels humid and gross. I was like, invest in some AC. I love when I was like, just put an oscillating fan in. And then I was like, wait, no, the cards would blow everywhere. Put a box unit in there. That ain't hard. Those box units, look at that place cooled off in no time. Oh, y'all on non-American soil with your lack of belief in AC. What's it doing to the environment? Really? I cry laugh as I say that. No, I'm always baffled when I hear people from Europe talk about not having AC, and I'm like, but how? But y'all are used to it, so it's fine. Y'all are used to it. My great-grandmother, I would go in the middle of July to her house and be like 92 in there, and there'd be like no AC on, and I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, back during the Depression, we didn't have air conditioning. I'm like, that was 80 years ago. The technology has changed. But anyway, this episode was really, really good. She's like, I am playing against the previous queen. And she's like, this is fun. Chihaya is the best when she's just not thinking. Just having fun, enjoying it. But the moment she gets sidetracked hard. And it's hard for her to bounce back from it. Her and Taichi are kind of similar in that regard. Taichi is doing great until he overanalyzes to the point where he starts to doubt himself, and then it goes downhill. Chihaya is great until the moment she starts thinking about the other side and the opponent and doubts herself, and then it all goes downhill. These two need to build up their confidence in each other and in their skills. They need to. And then, yeah, Yamamoto Yumi is, she's like just doubting herself. This girl is much like the queen, young, beautiful, and talented at Karuta. God is unfair. All I have is Karuta. And I kind of, you know what? I kind of get a little mad at this. And it's kind of a life lesson to us as the audience watching, because we know nothing about Shinobu except that she practices by herself and she's been doing it for a long time. but we know nothing about her past. It makes me a little frustrated because it's one of those things where Yamamoto Yumi is like, I should be pitied because I've worked so hard and I've gotten to the top and now, but I'm not pretty and whatever. I'm like, girl, that's not an excuse, because one, just because you don't see yourself as conventionally beautiful, you're still talented enough to be a queen at Karuta, so shut up. You've worked hard for that title. Don't doubt yourself. But also, you have no clue about Chihaya and her life. She looks at Chihaya and thinks, oh, she's young and beautiful and has the world on a silver platter. And I'm like, her parents just now made her a photo album and put one photo in it. Like, her parents haven't given a shit about her this whole time. And she does not have a very good home life, honestly, in comparison to some other people. And I'm like, there's a lot that is assumed from Yamamoto Yumi about Chihaya. And I'm like, you don't even know her. Like, I think it's a good lesson for us, the audience, to be like, we cannot assume about our opponents just based on their look, right? But she has a reason to think that, and she's projecting kind of her own jealousy of Shinobu onto Chihaya, honestly. And she's like, Karuta's been my life since I was a child. But yet, I will say, maybe Yamamoto Yumi should have gone to Kana's family to get some kimonos, because can we talk about Shinobu and the look? Can we talk about the look? Like, she's got the look played in my head the moment I saw her. I was like, oh, the black pants, the black bottom with the red and the vibrant flowers against her black hair. Could you make it more beautiful? And Shinobu's not like a bombshell. She's gorgeous, but like, she just looked incredible in that. I lost it to Wakamiya Shinobu a year later. A 15-year-old was able to prevent me from playing my Karuta. A lot of talk about my Karuta in this episode. It was said a lot, that phrase, my Karuta. And the thing about it is, that is the worst matchup, honestly. Shinobu is the worst matchup for Yamamoto Yumi, because one, the idea of the stubborn play, like her contesting every card, what Yamamoto Yumi is banking off of is that when she makes the contesting, she's like, oh, but my hand hit it first, and actually that was mine. And she's trying to goad you into one, either saying it was, yeah, I guess it is your card, I'll let you have it. I'm like, no. When Chihaya let her have that, I was like, no, I would have contested right back and been like, no, I hit it. Absolutely not. Actually, no. I would have contested right back. But that's the American in me coming out, probably. I'd be like, no, actually, it was me. I hit it. It went further. It was my force that dealt it. I don't care about your pinky finger. But Chihaya being nice was a detriment to her. And here's the thing. Shinobu would not have taken shit off of that. Shinobu would have been like, no, it was my card. And would have taken it, you know? And not only that, but Shinobu is such a precise, needle-like competitor that just zoops in and does that. Yamamoto Yumi's style was not like that at all. Yamamoto Yumi's play style is strong, steady, river, beating drum. Steady as a beating drum. She's just like, she's calculated, but it's just a steady rhythmic motion. And if she gets out of rhythm, then she'll contest your moves and then throw you off. But that doesn't work in an opponent like Shinobu with her playstyle. Just doesn't work. So honestly, Shinobu's playstyle is the perfect antithesis of Yamamoto Yumi's, so it would be the perfect to play against her and win, right? So that just kind of like, it just sucks to be her. And again, one thing that frustrated me about Yamamoto Yumi is she's like, oh, well, Shinobu's probably already forgotten about me already. How do you know? How do you know? Shinobu seems to remember everybody she plays, even Pseudo. She teases Pseudo, right? So I don't think she's forgotten her. It frustrated me because I got mad at Yamamoto Yumi because I'm like, you can't underestimate your opponents like that just because of how they look. But also, you are the queen. Respect yourself a little more. Like, you worked so hard to get there. Why would you instantly doubt yourself? Like, I wanted to just gently shake her and be like, stop thinking that. That's how strong she was. If I win here, I'll still have to face her in the end. I think the part of me that got really sad too is that there's no way Yamamoto Yumi's winning against her. There's no way. That's not going to happen. I feel like I wanted Chihaya to face Shinobu because at least Chihaya would maybe put up a fight and Shinobu wants to face her, so there'd be some tension, like some like moments there. But the moment that Chihaya lost this round, I'm like, well, nobody's going to beat Shinobu then. Right? Nobody's going to beat her. They're not going to have Yamamoto Yumi beat Shinobu this time and then come back and face Chihaya again. Or maybe they will. And Chihayafuru will surprise me, but I doubt it. No, because then Shinobu has to face... I don't know, though. This series could do that. They could have Shinobu lose and then not be queen, but I don't know. I feel like Chihaya's going to have to face her eventually. And then she's like, oh, I can't win. And so while it's getting so much condensation inside, I liked the fact that Kana and Tsutomu put the little boxes to stand on. It was super cute. They're also the same height. They're just so perfect together. I love them. We'll talk about them in a second. But yeah, so Nishida's like, come on, Yumin, you can do this. And Chihaya's like, why is she starting to doubt herself? And the look Chihaya gives when she's just like, you're the queen. Like, why aren't you wanting to play me so much? Like, where's your passion? Like, why someone who achieved her dream, is acting this way. And he's like, and we get the whole thing with the coach. But I feel like Chihaya, for the first time, is like, why would someone that was the queen act this way? And it's that concept of defeat. Like, Shinobu crushed her confidence that much. But I was kind of expecting there to be a lesson with Yamamoto Yumi because Nishida kind of points out how the way that they framed this didn't go the way I expected it to, because they talk about how the coach was like, oh, well, you haven't been practicing as much because you have a job now, and that's why you didn't win. You can avenge yourself next year. Oh, you got 8th place in the tournament? Oh, well, what a pity. You could have placed higher. I just know it. And, oh, you lost in the second round. Oh, well, it just wasn't your day. Like, your skills are the best. And Nishida translates that as, it's not that she's tired of losing, it's that she's tired of failing to meet expectations. And yeah, that definitely is a way you could interpret that scene, that her coach keeps putting these high expectations on her. I didn't take it that way. I, from a coaching perspective, took it as her coach needed to be more honest with her. And I felt like, for me, those flashbacks, I felt it as the coach being like, oh, well, you won, but you're the best there is. You just had a rough day. You'll get him, Tiger, next time. Just keep on trying and do it. I wanted the coach to be a little harder on her, and not harder in a bad way, not harder in a, like, why didn't you win? Like one of those situations, but to kind of be honest with her and being like, yeah, you haven't practiced. That's why you haven't practiced. That's why you aren't winning, because you're not putting in the time that others are putting in. Because I think that's something that Yamamoto Yumi, with Shinobu, she's just like, oh, she's a prodigy and she's pretty and she's young. Shinobu practices to a unhealthy degree, it seems, by herself. She puts in the time. And that's the thing. Once you have a job and you're out of college and you can't put the time in, you're going to get matched by somebody that's working harder than you. That's the thing, is like, you can be the hardest worker out there, but if you don't keep that up, yeah, someone else that's working harder than you is going to rise up and surpass you. And I don't want the coach to be mean to her, but I feel like he kind of coddles her a little, and he's like, oh, well, you're the best there is. You'll get him next time. It's okay. Like, he makes some excuses for her. And I thought the conversation was going to kind of go to the fact that she needs to own up to the fact that people around her are practicing just as hard as her. And just because they might look conventionally better than her is not an excuse for them beating her. I thought I was going to kind of go that route, but then it did not, which is interesting to me. But I don't know. Instead, they frame it as she was, sad about not meeting expectations, which that is part of it. Once you get to the top of the ladder, the only way is down. And it's a matter of, how do you view that? When you get to the top and become the queen, do you want to stay there? Or was the goal to get to the top and then you're good? Right? Because some people, their goal is, I want to get a gold medal. And once they get a gold medal, they're like, okay, I did the thing. I made it to the top, the pinnacle, the peak you can go. I did the thing. I checked it off and now I'm good. I'm going to move on to the next goal. And then others are like, well, I got a gold this year, so I need to get a gold the next year. And they have to keep it going. And those are two very different mentalities. Those are two very different practicing sets. And those are two very different mindsets that you have as a competitor. And they have different ways to handle and maintain them. And I feel like she wanted to maintain being a queen, but maybe lost sight of what all that entailed, or lost sight of the fact that it's all, you can't stay queen forever, right? Nobody's queen forever. It's going to eventually pass to somebody else. So Chihaya's problem is, I got a little worried when she's like, I won't let a person who's given up take a single card from me. I thought Chihaya was going to be like trying to like encourage her opponent to get back in the game, which she inadvertently does. But I was like, never say never. Fallacies are not good. Nope. So meanwhile, they're trying to see the match and everything. And they're trying to Kitano. They're trying to calm the coach down. I do like Chihaya. Here's the other thing. Chihaya's tiger face is not when I'm worried as a competitor, because Chihaya's tiger face means that she might pounce too soon, or she might make a mistake, or she might get too passionate too quickly. Chihaya in Zen Cell Saga Gohan mode is when you get worried. when Chihaya has that serene look that she had against Pseudo, that's when you're worried. This tiger face Chihaya it's funny, but I wasn't worried about Chihaya winning, or I was worried about her getting a little too ahead of herself, right? And the moment she starts to make mistakes, that's when it starts going downhill. She was being careful, but she got too cocky and thought she could dominate the match. And then Yamamoto Yumi was like, excuse me? I'm the former queen. No. So then I like this part where Kana is like, no one's actually listening to the poems. They're all too hot and sweaty and they're trying to just end the match and get it over with. But this part here where she talks about how the speaker is so clear with her voice as a reader, I loved this part because she, Kana loves the poetry and she loves it being spoken and the words, the meaning associated behind it. And Tsutomu looks over her and sees that. And Tsutomu took a moment to do a flirt move. And I was like, Tsutomu, my dude. He was like, oh, well, the readers are pretty amazing. They have ranks and exams, and there are less than 10 special readers qualified for the master match. That's pretty intense. That's pretty cool. That's badass. And Tsutomu was saying that to Kana. She's like, a special reader. How hard is it to become one? I love that. And she's like, Chihaya, listen to the poems. But Chihaya's not listening to the poems. She's gotten cocky. She thinks she's going to be victorious, and Yamamoto Yumi gets kind of frustrated by that, and that leads her to kick it in gear and get stubborn herself, right? Because she's persistent and tenacious and doesn't give up. But I thought that was really sweet. I loved Kana talking about the readers. I'm like, if it doesn't work out for Kana to be a Karuta player down the road, like after high school, then she could be a reader. That'd be so amazing. Like, she would love reading because then she can get into the poetry and all of that. Yeah, and Tsutomu gets major flirt points because he, knew a lot about the readers in the moment. So Yamamoto's like, what, Shinobu and then this girl, they expect every player to be oozing with confidence. And she's like, I lost my confidence a long time ago. But that's why I understand. You can't let your passion take over. And the moment she missed the impassioned card, I was like, ooh, that's not good. I felt bad for her. I was like, But that is a good point. Chihaya lets her passion take over to an unhealthy degree. We've talked about that previously, where Karuta becomes consuming to Chihaya. And it needs to be. You need to dedicate yourself to a sport if you're going to be good at it, right? But you've got to know how to do it in a healthy way. And Chihaya has shown that it's like a constantly overflowing faucet. It's always 120%. And girl, you will burn out so quickly on that. So I'm like, she has to learn control. Taichi is controlled within an inch of his life, and he's too controlled, and Chihaya is too loose. She's like, the previous queen needs her opponents to make mistakes. Yep. And that's when she's like, the red that is the Tatsuya River. Yep. So, okay, she didn't lose her actual card. And she's like, I've played hundreds of matches, so I know. She's like, how could I mess that up? She's like, I still have a chance and I can do this. Yeah, that's the moment where it turned around. And I was like, shit, we were 16 minutes in the match. And I was like, come on. Also, I was waiting for somebody at some point to shout in one of these matches to be like, you can do it or something like that. And so the coach for Yamamoto Yumi's team finally does that. I don't blame him for wanting them to wipe the windows down so people can see, but the moment he lets like that breeze roll in and Yamamoto Yumi's like, you just helped all our opponents recover. It's great. And he says, play your own Karuta. She's like, everybody simple-minded here is going to let that go to their own head. But I love that she's able to actually take the words and apply it. And meanwhile, Chihaya, you just spoke about, you might as well have told her they're going to steal the Declaration of Independence at this point, because she's like, wait, my own Karuta. I'm like, God, girl, no. So then Yamamoto Yumi gets inspired. You'll be a challenger again. And there is something to that, right? There is something to that. I feel like Chihaya also comes into matches with, she's thinking too much of the future. She's not being present in the moment. We've talked about that in previous episodes, but she's so focused on what's down the road that she's losing sight of being present and being, as Yamamoto describes it, a challenger in the moment. And it's kind of good for Yamamoto because she's like, oh, if I'm not on top, what have I got to lose? I'm a challenger again. I can fight my way back to the top and prove myself all over again. Once you're on top, maintaining it is the problem. So she's like, oh, that takes a weight off of me. You know, the Karuta that comes from all the practice that I've done with everyone. That's the thing. Chihaya is like, I'm going to play my own Karuta, but I don't even think Chihaya knows what her own Karuta is. That's the problem. She's like, I've been playing with all these people. My Karuta is with my team, but she can't decide. 2 episodes ago, she was just now learning what timing was. So girl doesn't even know what her own Karuta is. So how can you play it if you don't know? Meanwhile, Yamamoto Yumi, she knows what her own Karuta is. She's figured it out. She's stubborn, persistent, and she can test cards. And that's her gamesmanship. That's it. And Chihaya's like, Chihaya's so unsure about herself. Girl is Bambi. She is not full-grown Bambi yet. She's just figured out what to do, but she is not there yet. Now, the whole calling out things would piss me off as an opponent, and that's the point. The point is to piss you off. The point of contesting it is to throw you off your game, to make you question, to throw you off your rhythm, to get you out of sync, and to prey upon that. That's literally a strategy, and you can do it. Does it look good? No. Do people hate you for it? No. But in the words of Alexander Hamilton, do you get hate for it? Oh, you'll get hate for it. You'll get love for it, but you're not going to get it if you don't do it, right? So you'll get nothing if you wait for it, you know? So I think that it's kind of like when Tsutomu a few episodes ago put all the 1 cards on one side and was betting on his cards getting picked before the other cards. It's a gamble. It's strategy. The whole contesting thing did not, I'm sure, pay off with Shinobu, because Shinobu probably was like, no. But it pays off against Chihaya, and it throws her off her rhythm, right? So, and everybody's like, you're going to make this game last forever. The legendary contest Yumi. She's like, yeah, she'll contest every close call with absolute confidence. Yep. And while she's arguing, everyone else has to stop playing, so most people frown upon it. She stopped because it was unfitting for the queen. And that's probably why she lost too, because if she wasn't contesting against Shinobu because she thought it was unfitting, it's like, no, girl, if you're going to have no shame as a challenger, have no shame as a queen, right? Like, what's the difference? She's making it harder. But yeah, Chihaya just, she got too caught up in it. Oh, I hate it. It makes me so sad. And then she's like, why would I think I wouldn't let her take a single card? She's the previous queen. Chihaya went through a roller coaster of emotions in this one match, and she went on the confidence tower of terror the whole time. It was just up, down, up, down, up, down. I was like, girl, I love Chihaya so much and I want her to win, but girl was just struggle bus this whole match. And Taichi Karuta is scary. She's lost all of her confidence. She's freezing up and making mistakes. I didn't realize that mental strength was so important. And then Taichi's like, mental strength. How badly you want it. Yep. And so, I think with Taichi, how badly do you want it? That's part of the mental strength. But I think it's more than that. I think that's a big part of it. Because Chihaya wants it. She wants it real bad. But here's the thing too. Why does Chihaya want it? That's a big point of it. Why does she want to be queen? Taichi wants to be the master for a number of reasons. Taichi wants to best Arata, because that's his rival. That's who he wants to beat. He wants to best Arata. He wants to prove himself to Chihaya, because Chihaya admires Arata, and Taichi's like, I'm the one standing here in front of you. Admire me, not him. And Taichi wants to do it for himself. He wants to prove that he's good and that he's doing it for himself and that he likes Karuta. So Taichi has in his mind, even if he doesn't recognize it at this point, he has reasons and mental strength for wanting to be a master and wanting to win. Why does Chihaya want to be a queen? Because Arata told her that she would be? What does that mean? Do you want to play Karuta just because it's fun? She does. She wants to play Karuta because it's fun and it's with her friends. But what is the point of competition? I don't think Chihaya has personally gotten to the point where she understands why she herself wants to be queen and what it is for herself. Right now, she's always been focused on everybody else around her in Karuta. Her friends playing Karuta, Arata playing Karuta, Taichi playing Karuta, and making sure that everyone's having fun and playing it with her. But she's not introspectively looked at herself and why she's doing it, right? And Taichi kind of has an advantage because Taichi's mom was like, well, you need to win. You need to have this. So there's always been instilled in Taichi this personal sense of needing to be accomplished. Chihaya's family has never pushed her to win. They were just like, oh, good for you, honey. You got a trophy. But they've never pushed her like I feel they've pushed her sister. So Chihaya's not had those pushes of why to be competitive. She's just done it because she thought it would get her friends and it's something she's good at. And because Arata had inspired her. But why else is she playing? And Taichi, if he learns why he's playing and what that mental strength is, he's the captain. He should be able to pass that on to Chihaya somehow. So we'll see how that goes. He's like, people will remember your tendency to contest cards, but your Karuta is that much more refined and more accurate. Everyone knows how difficult it is to get to that point. And that's the thing. She's accurate and refined. And it took her all those 10 years to get there. Oh. And poor Chihaya, I wanted to cry. I was about to cry at the end of this episode because Chihaya was so just distraught. And I think Dr. Harada's like, uh-oh, our girl's going to spiral. She has the Taichi bangs in front of her hair moment. That's a pose only reserved for Taichi. You can't be doing that now. Y'all. And then they don't even give us, not that I would watch the preview, but it would have been tempting this week. It would have been tempting. It would have been tempting to see what was going to happen next week. Oh my God, I wanted to cry for her. This episode. Ugh. Yamamoto Yumi, y'all. Don't forget the name. Don't forget the Ella. I'm a fan. Oh, this episode was hard. And I feel next week's going to be harder. But we'll cross that bridge together, won't we? So anyway, I hope you all are having a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. I'm excited to hear your comments down below. And I'll be back next week with episode 23 of Chihayafuru. And I'll see you all then.